Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi. My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Scott Pilgrim
Scott?
versus the
Scott
world?
Pilgrim. I don't know why we're saying it like that, but I love it.
Who knows? Who knows, man?
Scott Pilgrim!
Prepare to feel the wrath of the League of Evil Exes.
Ramona dated twins.
At the same time?
If you want something bad, you have to fight for it. Step up your game, Scott. Break out the L word.
Lesbian?
The other L word.
Lesbians?
It's Thursday, and to kick off Halloween, I guess we're doing this movie. This is brought to you by our Patreon producer, Lef. L-E-F.
Mm-hmm.
Solid name. Good and sturdy. Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Thank you for your support and for bringing us this movie. A movie that I appreciate when people pick movies like this because, I mean, mind you, I like it when they pick the weird indie ones too because then I get to watch them. But this is a movie everybody's seen, and everybody
most people,
probably
I
has
think. Most people who listen to our podcast have probably seen this.
Yeah, it's an Edgar Wright film. It's got a bunch of people in it. You know the film, and I got to ask you, Tom, knowing the answer, but I want to ask you, what did you've seen this movie before, right? So have I.
Yeah, I've seen this movie probably 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, same here. What do you think about it?
I don't like this movie.
Yeah, I know.
This movie is it's like a Spider-Man 3 or like a Dark Knight Rises for me. And that I went into it just with really excited, and every time, and I left disappointed, extremely so. And every time I rewatch this movie, for like the first 2/3, I always think this, and I do the same thing with Spider-Man 3 or Dark Knight Rises. I'm like, maybe I was too hard on this movie, and then the last chunk of the movie happens, and then I remember, no, I was exactly right about this movie.
So I have a few questions.
Sure.
Are you telling me the first 2/3 of Spider-Man 3 are good?
No, it's less than that for Spider-Man 3 for sure.
Yes. I guess it is. I know what you mean with Spider-Man 3, where there are moments in that film, so you're like, oh yeah, that was cool.
I was like, yeah, maybe I'm just like a little, it's like corny and stupid, but maybe I'm just a little too, and then the rest of the movie keeps happening, and you're like, oh no, I was exactly right about this movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like in this movie, but boy, do I hate the ending, and I hate what they did with the story.
You read the comics.
I did.
I didn't read the comics. Watching this, knowing your problems with it, and that isn't to say, well, so this is, for me, this is a very fun movie to watch high. This is a very well-constructed movie. It's beautiful, every second of it. It's so, it's very tight. The editing, very efficient.
Yeah, Edgar Wright
I think
rules with pacing.
Yes, I think it might be one of his best films in terms of that stuff. In terms of the visuals, the acting is good.
It's certainly his most unique, I think.
Yes, even before you brought it up, the ending annoyed me. And watching it again this time, the ending, yes, it's a bad ending.
It's terrible
because not just in terms of the story, but everything they do in the movie kind of sets up. I assume in the comic books, he ends up with knives.
No.
Okay. All right, I have another theory then. In the comic book, he ends up with neither.
No,
Weird.
He ends up with Ramona, not right away in my memory, but the ultimate point of the comic is he's an evil X.
Yes, and they touch on that,
and he just doesn't realize it. To the point, like Gideon invites him to join the League when he gets there for that confrontation. And it's the comic does a lot more work. It does a lot more stuff with like unreliable narrator, where Scott incorrectly remembers his past relationships.
Right,
and then like when he fights Nega Scott, which happens earlier in the comics. He actually does gain the power of understanding. Like they just sort of say he does in this movie.
Yeah, it's a great gag. The Nega Scott thing is a hilarious gag.
It's a funny ass gag, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like when he actually has to face himself, he does it earlier in the comic, and
right.
when he beats himself, he like kind of the veil drops on his unreliable narration, and you actually see what happened with his past relationships, and he's a bad guy.
That's the thing about this character, and it's evident in this movie. And they try to make it a thing where he like, oh, I cheated on you.
It's extreme lip service, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is Scott? He's not like a monster.
No,
but he's an asshole.
He's an asshole, yeah, and he's the difference. Yeah, they pay it so much lip service in the movie, and it's like you guess, you're almost there. All right, yeah, sorry, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, here's the thing: is I think I don't want to speak for you, but in my youth, like I remember going through a bad breakup and becoming an asshole for a little while. That's a thing that happens.
Oh yeah, no, there was a period in my 20s where I did a lot of the exact same things that Scott does in this movie.
Right, and so. It's not an unrelatable character, but they kind of have to do the work at the end, and they don't do the work.
He doesn't learn anything. Like the movie says, he learned about love and he learned about self-respect, but he doesn't learn any of those things.
The movie, narratively, it sets up the idea that he's going to go back with Knives, and Knives is going to like reject him or something, because her arc is interesting,
her arc
more
is
interesting,
baffling.
Well, I like the idea of this person gaining her own self-esteem and stuff like that, but it is kind of all over the place. That actress, by the way, she's killing it.
Oh yeah,
Ellen Wong. She might be the best. Like Knives is the hardest role, I think, in this movie.
I think so.
She's doing the most work, and she's really good.
Yeah. Yeah,
because she's playing a cartoon character.
Yeah, it's just the completion of her arc is deeply unsatisfying and it's the weird. They do the thing that movies do, where there's a love triangle and they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Mm-hmm. So one of them's like, "It's okay," and it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. After she literally fights his battle for him.
Yeah, I like her arc up until that point, and then like.
That's my ultimate beef with this movie is I enjoy this movie right up until Act 3, and the end of this movie is horseshit.
Well,
it's really bad narratively.
Yeah.
And it says a lot of bad things about the characters and honestly the filmmaker behind it, because Edgar Wright has a problem with female characters, and they generally wind up being trophies, and they also tend to be shrewish.
Yes. Yeah. And that is definitely across the board. This movie probably has the most female characters of any Edgar Wright.
Yeah. No, that's
this
accurate.
Probably has the best representation, I would say. But it's still not great. I mean, everybody's kind of a dickhead in this. That's part of it.
Yeah. It's just,
but it's done with such. There's so many charismatic actors in this that it's
that are doing great bits.
Yeah.
It's just really disappointing that this, like Edgar Wright was able to see, and a little bit in his defense, I'll preface this. They started making this movie before the comic was finished.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a Game of Thrones situation where he had to kind of fill in some blanks with just the writer telling him, this is kind of where it's going. But like the way that it's a bummer that Edgar Wright was able to look at this comic and identify so many of the things that made it cool and unique and appealing. But the thing he missed is the fucking soul of the story.
I have a question for you about where this movie belongs. In the sense of when I started watching it, it was sort of occurring to me that this is kind of, I assume the attempt of this film is it's like an Empire Records or a Clueless.
I think so. Yeah, it's like a
modern one, but it's a fun aimed at teenagers. Like, look how cool these adults are.
Or young
comedy.
young 20s. Yeah.
Well, I think it's aimed at teenagers to look at people in their 20s and be like, look how cool they are. Like Empire Records, I watched more as a teenager than I did in my 20s. But how does it compare to those? Do you think those movies also do they stick the landing? Do they have enough of a soul?
I think Clueless does.
I do too.
Empire Records, I've only seen once or twice. It did that one. That wasn't a movie for me. Like Clueless was a big movie for me.
It's got Guar in it.
I know.
Yeah. I guess my question is, like, those films, they're not as pretty as this one.
No, and they're not. They don't have like the just the fantastic elements and like the action and the this movie is.
But it still feels like it's in the same realm as those movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's essentially teen hanging out, a movie.
Yeah.
There's more at stake, but not really, you know?
Not really. And that's what's one of the things that was so appealing to me about the comic is that it took all of these elements like comics and video games and anime and comedy, and it told a story about a guy coming to terms with all of the shitty things he's done,
right,
to the people around him. And I think the comic, I haven't read it in a while, but the comic really nails it. Like, it's very good. Mm-hmm. And that aspect of, like, you know, it looks cool, and I like the idea of it. You know, the 7 Evil X's, that's a fun as hell idea. He has to fight them in video game style battles. That's all great. But like the part that's made the story stick with me was the story part, you know, like the actual narrative part of it about like, okay, yeah, it is all these things, but it's also just a pretty simple story about a guy growing up, essentially being like, okay, it's time for me to knock all this stuff up and really be honest with myself and the people around me about kind of all the fucking up I've done for the past couple of years. And that part of the movie just falls so flat to me. That
was what I was getting at, is I don't know if it's because of nostalgia for movies like Clueless or Empire Records, but I feel less compelled to rewatch Scott Pilgrim, and I think it's because it doesn't have as much humanity.
Yes, 100%.
It has a lot of comedy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have moments of humanity so much in it.
Yeah, and
everybody's kind of a not a human.
Of course, yeah. No, I mean this it doesn't take place in the real world.
No.
But that may seem like an odd criticism to level at this film, that it doesn't really have any humanity. But I'm gonna keep beating this drum. The comic really does.
Right. So I don't know.
This story can be done with all of those cool, fantastical elements and also the really human story. Like, it can happen because this guy, Brian Lee O'Malley, he fucking did it. Like, he did it with his comic.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of this. Like, it has all the beats of a movie, but I don't feel much when, like, she gets back with Jason Schwartzman. Because I don't like Scott Pilgrim really either.
We don't like Scott Pilgrim. We don't know anything about Gideon up until this point.
Yeah. I don't feel like we're supposed to like Scott Pilgrim either, though.
No, but...
Like, I don't think the movie wants us to like him.
No.
But there's his arc, like you said, his arc is very confusing in the movie because it doesn't seem like he hits a point where he's like, I'm an asshole. And, like, has to really... Like, that should have been... I think what it is like, that should be the thing that drives the third act as opposed to Gideon.
As opposed to fighting Gideon, and teaming up with knives to Dance Dance Revolution fight Gideon, which is just...
It's like...
That is the most... Like, the climax of this film is actually repellent to me. Like, it really...
So none of that's in the comic.
Really turns me off. Oh, yeah, no, none of that's in the comic.
Because it does... Yeah, I think this is what it is that it does... The natural progression of the film, it never shocked me that he's fighting him. Except for, aside from the fact of realizing that someone taught Jason Schwartzman and Michael Cera to fight, because they have to do the fighting in some of those scenes.
A little bit.
What a hilarious practical joke on the world. To teach them a couple of fight moves.
What a thing to unleash on us.
Yeah. But it fits with the natural progression of the movie, which maybe that's not what should happen to make it stand out. Like, Edgar Wright is kind of known for not doing that. Shaun of the Dead, suddenly the government shows up at the end. World's End, they're just bitching at the aliens at the end.
Yeah.
He loves to actually subvert that. And it was like, oh, okay, and then they fight. And maybe it sounds like that's not how the comic book ends. And yeah, maybe the movie needed to take a sharp turn right there and then.
I think the movie just needed to do the work.
They do the I think the issue is that they try to, where he's like, I'm fighting you for her, and then he gets the one up, and then he's like, I'm fighting you for me. And it's like, but you wouldn't be fighting him for you.
Right, you wouldn't be fighting him for you. And then like he doesn't even, because then Knives jumps in and then they all fight him, and it's like, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
And like his reconciliation is just to kind of briefly say I'm sorry to Kim and Knives and Ramona, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, they have to really shoehorn that part.
Yeah, that is as much introspection as he gains.
And that's a problem because they've spent a sizable chunk of the movie setting up this love triangle. Ed Scott being clearly the asshole.
He's just he kind of sucks.
That's the more concerning thing. The movie definitely has issues with like the movie has ADD, and maybe it's because it's too much to fit in, but they do the Knives Ramona thing, and then the Evil X's thing has to happen, and then it's sort of like they have to fit in the X fights.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them feel when it's what's her name from Arrested Development,
Mae Whitman.
Oh, okay. That one feels really weird because it's like they're at a bar, they're talking, then she has to fight, and then that ends, and then they keep talking.
Yeah.
And so it felt like, oh, they didn't quite know how to fit that in. It's so much. It's so much to fit into a movie.
Yes.
That it feels like there was this shouldn't be a mini series, should it?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay. Do you think they just needed to kind of work on the ending?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
That was my opinion. Like, it really starts to lose me with the fight with the twins at the Battle of the Bands.
Oh, I love that scene.
I mean, it's pretty cool, but like it's
so much visual. There's so many visuals. It's
yeah, it looks really cool. So yeah, I guess that part's fine. It's just I don't know. It's hard to keep. It's kind of hard to keep that ball in the air, and it's like the twins have no personality.
That's where it feels like they couldn't fit them all.
Exactly, yeah. Like we got such fun characters out of the others, like Matthew Patel and Lucas Lee and Todd and Mae Whitman and Gideon. Like they're all these enormous characters, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a chance for these different actors that they got to really have a lot of fun being as big as possible.
Is Chris Evans, his movie that they show, is the world frozen over in that movie?
I think probably.
So it's Snowpiercer? Is he in Snowpiercer?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, he's killing it in this. He's doing a voice.
Yeah, he's great, yeah.
It's pre
Captain America. This is 2010, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So he's not like big shit over there. He's like, yeah, I did Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Look at me now.
I mean, that is one of his lines in the movie.
Yeah. We got post Superman in there though.
We did, yeah. Brandon Routh.
Yeah, doing a great job. All the X's are doing good. I mean, I feel like they're all having fun because they know they just have to be silly as shit.
Yeah, and that's kind of the best part of the movie.
I would argue the best part of the movie is Thomas Jane and Clifton Collins Jr. as the vegan police.
Well, obviously.
That's one of that I never remember they're in this movie, and it surprises me every time.
And then
just like, holy shit.
When they leave,
they're not even...
It's like the scene's not even focused on them when they're leaving, but you see them both kind of hop over the wall and give each other a high five and shout, yeah! It's the fucking best.
Of all the people to play the vegan police,
right, yeah.
Would not not imagine either of them.
No, which is why it's so great.
It's such a fucking choice.
Yeah. It's one of the most incredible cameos of all time is Tom Jane and Clifton Collins Jr. as the vegan police.
That's the thing. This movie is such a strong cast.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about Kieran Culkin. Like he's
awesome. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's basically doing his character in Succession. He grooves so well with Edgar Wright comedy timing.
Yeah.
That's the thing about this movie is, like most Edgar Wrights, like it's hard to describe what makes me laugh because it's so quick and visual.
Mm-hmm.
Like him coming in and being drunk and slapping the keys at Scott's face.
Yeah.
It just kills me every fucking time.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great line. And that's verbatim from the comics.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he comes in and he says, "Guess who's drunk? I guess Wallace." You guess right. And he bounces the keys off.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
The timing of that, because the keys smack him and then he smacks the mattress.
I mean, Edgar Wright takes it. Like this movie, I think we mentioned earlier, he's great at pacing, and this movie is like him really, really firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so, even though the movie's almost 2 hours, it moves so fast, and it just fucking pummels you with gags.
Yeah. And nostalgia. When is this supposed to take place, by the way? Because the computer that he uses is a 90s computer.
Yeah, but Wallace has like a flip phone, like a flip cell phone.
Right, which is also kind of like... So it's probably early 2000s?
Early to mid... I would put it in mid 2000s.
I would put it a little... It's interesting because this movie, the age group, is directly appealing to us.
Yes.
Like, they're the ages that we are.
I remember when this movie came out, the oldest person... I think this is correct. When this movie came out, the oldest person was Schwartzman, and he was 29.
Right.
And I think that might have even included Edgar Wright, but I'm not positive. That's probably wrong.
Oh, I mean, even just the characters' ages. But...
Right, yeah. But certainly the cast, I think the oldest person was Schwartzman, and everybody was under 30.
Yeah. I think that might be part of the love of this movie. One, it's really great visually.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it really appeals to, like... Because this didn't come out when I was that age. This came out, what,
2010.
10?
Yeah.
Wow, that's even later than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like it takes place a decade in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it really like gave me nostalgia of like my 20s, dirtbag 20s, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is a dirtbag 20s movie for sure.
Scott living at Kieran Culkin's house and like that apartment itself, like just the visuals of that apartment, I was like, Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mattress
feels very familiar.
Mattress on the floor.
Yeah, going to shows and like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's heavy nostalgia, and so I don't know. It's interesting movie because it isn't really a period piece, but it kind of is too. Like when him and Knives go out on their like little day dates.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't been a 20-year-old in a while, but that was exactly the kind of dates I would go on. You go to the arcade, or you go to the mall, or you go to
the record store. You go to the thrift store.
Shop,
you go to the coffee
look
shop.
At clothes.
Yeah,
and you just like you don't even like buy things.
No, because you don't have any money.
Right. You could buy a couple things if you're going to all used places like like thrift shops and stuff, but like. Yeah, they really nailed that down. And I assume that's all from the comic books. Like, this person who made the comic books clearly lived was the exact same age I was in the exact time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I don't know, neat, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, do we get period piece movies? Like, I always think of Dazed and Confused because that was made, in the late 90s, mid 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. That was like 90. That was like 93.
And that's like heavy nostalgia for the 70s.
Yes.
I remember like my parents seeing that film and being like, "Oh, geez, yeah, I remember all this."
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I don't know. It's interesting to be old and watch this movie that wasn't made during that time, seemingly try to capture nostalgia for that time, which was only 10 years earlier, apparently.
Yeah, not even like a full 10 years.
Yeah,
like this.
It's weird.
This is like this feels like between 2002 and like 2005.
Yeah, something like that.
Around there.
I know. It's fucking weird.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like you're probably in the minority not liking this movie. Maybe not. I don't know.
I feel like I'm pretty much the only... I remember I went to see this with a friend... and walking out of the theater, like, I said to him, I was like, I didn't really like it. And he was very surprised. And yeah, like, that's kind of like the experience I've had, like, with, people in my friend group and then, like, people from Cracked and stuff. I feel like most people in my orbit like this movie. And I'm not like a curmudgeon about it. I'm just like, when it comes up, I'm like, yeah, I think that movie has a really shitty ending and therefore a really shitty message for its target audience. But sure,
that is important.
It looks great, and my God, Edgar Wright is just fucking a master at what he does in terms of speed and pacing and just comedic timing.
Yeah, it's really hard because things like art. I guess it's different with the comic book and everything, considering the comic book had a different message, because I don't always think a good movie has to have a good message.
No. It can just be cool to look at, but this one, because it is about such a very specific thing.
Yeah.
I think
that's the thing, is I'm not sure if this is like a Clueless or an Empire Records, and and teenagers are watching it and they're thinking about who they want to be, you know?
Yeah.
No one wants to be Scott Pilgrim.
No.
And I don't know what message they would get out of it. I don't. It's hard to think of it from that perspective.
I think the haunting realization that you are Scott Pilgrim that was my experience with it.
I thought that was the idea. Yeah.
Like it just clicked at one point. It's like, oh fuck, I did most of this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he's got that real like passive aggressive scumbag thing where, again, like he knows, like when his sister calls him and he's like clearly like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's that where it's like, look, I'm in a spiral right now.
Yeah. He's like, it's Scott. Oh, what's he done now? No, I mean, it's actually Scott. What have you done now?
Yeah. And so again, I get it. I get that being in that place where you're like kind of a fuck up and kind of a scumbag. But yeah, I haven't watched High Fidelity in a while. Is that him being kind of a scumbag?
I recently did a retrospective of it for Collider because that was in the front of my mind. I was like, boy, I loved this movie when it came out in 2000, but I feel like it is not great right now. And it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's definitely he's a fucking monster in that movie.
Is that the idea? Well, all right. Is the idea that he's supposed to be kind of an asshole?
Yes.
But they don't realize to what extent he is one.
They actually do in High Fidelity, at least more than you would expect. That one has more of. It starts out with him just in an incandescent rage, and as the movie progresses, like he starts to see more and more clearly the things in his life that are his fault. And like him revisiting old relationships has that element of like from the Scott Pilgrim comic where it's like, you know, he faces Negascott and then he starts to get the actual version of the memories of each relationship. And John Cusack does that too in High Fidelity, except when he starts out, he's kind of shitty about it. He's like, oh, that's great. Like he has one girlfriend that he remembers getting dumped by, but actually he dumped her because he was trying to pressure her into having sex and she wasn't ready. And so when he receives that information, because it's like the first ex-girlfriend he revisits, he's like, oh, that's great. I don't need to feel bad about this. I wasn't the one who got dumped. Because like he's in a spiral wondering why he's the one that always gets dumped. And it's like, oh no, you're not remembering it correctly.
Right.
And then as the movie progresses, he starts to, you know, become more of a human being. And then by the end of the movie, he does both the character, because he's speaking directly to camera in High Fidelity, and then like the movie around him, like the characters around him, they do address the fact that he is the problem. Right. And he's the one that has to change.
Because this movie, the more I think about it, the less work it does. Like, for example, one of the running things in this movie is Scott has to get his own place. He's a mooch.
He never does that, does he?
No, instead, he just goes off with Ramona.
Yeah.
And we can expect him to be mooching off of her instead.
Right, yeah.
And yes, that is, I guess, the realistic version. But it's for a movie, it's weird to introduce that and not follow it through.
Right, and not end on it with him, like, getting a job, at least, or something, because he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's not doing anything.
Yeah,
which is fine. I mean, whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but they're planting the seeds of it. Like when one of the first scenes we see him in is when he's on his day dates with Knives, and he's making Knives pay for everything because he doesn't have any money. Exactly.
And that never gets resolved.
No.
His general attitude never gets resolved.
No.
That's what's interesting about it. It's they introduce a character with like a lot of flaws. And a lot of like big flaws, deep flaws, and then they solve the surface level problem in his life, and then he kind of continues on as if those flaws aren't a problem. So that is like, I'm thinking of the movie Clueless now, because Clueless also has a similar arc where Alicia Silverstone realizes that she's clueless, and then she, you know, to win, to get save the day, she has to go fuck her brother or something. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a little bit.
No, that's the moral of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Stepbrother, but still. It's Paul Rudd.
It's Paul Rudd.
But like she has a moment where she's like, oh shit. And you don't realize that's sort of what the movie's about, because you're happy to just sort of make fun of her as this, like, as a teenage.
Yeah, but you're never...
These teenagers, it's fun. You don't. She's not a bad person. Ever.
No. You never dislike her, but you recognize that like she's kind of self-absorbed. Like she's not really thinking about other people that much.
Right. And movies can do this where they don't have to have an arc. Like I think of Randall in Clerks, never really having an arc.
No.
But he's not the main character either.
No.
Dante is a pretty good example of a Scott Pilgrim type, actually.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
also
actually.
in a love triangle, he's a whiny little asshole the whole time. And Randall's the one who has to kind of knock some sense into him, sort of. Unlike Scott Pilgrim, everything just goes completely... It
blows up in his face.
Everything blows up in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
In necrophilia type ways.
Right, but even when you strip away the Kevin Smithness of it, it still blows up with Dante doesn't end up with either woman.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't that up.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it does feel like he's, that's what it is like, or like Dumb and Dumber is a good example too. At the end of Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey like threatened to walk out of the film because the original ending to Dumb and Dumber was that they do go on the bus with the swimsuit models.
No, they can't.
Yeah, and he was like, no. They're like, but we have to give them a happy ending, and he's like, fuck no.
No, this is their happy ending.
And it's sort of the same that needed with Scott Pilgrim, is he shouldn't have gotten back with Ramona or Knives. If he doesn't do the arc needed, he needs to just kind of keep going, right?
Yeah.
And that needs to be evident in it.
He just needs to mosey on out of town.
Yeah, and like Dante is a good example because he does learn a bit.
He does,
but he still has like to deal with the consequences.
Exactly.
Him learning his lesson doesn't mean he gets the girl.
No,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, good job, you learned your lesson. Your reward is that. That's your reward.
Yeah, your reward is that you learned something.
And that's the thing
you
Scott
grew
Pilgrim,
as a person.
Yeah, and Scott Pilgrim is not a self-aware character at the beginning, and I would argue he doesn't really end that way. And it's sort of because of they rush it. Like the Nega Scott that we started on, funny gag, but I get what you're saying where it's like, yeah, he really does have to face himself.
He does, yeah.
And it can't just be a throwaway gag where he's like, yeah, he's pretty cool. It's like, no, you shouldn't like him.
Yeah, you should really not like him. But it is a fun gag, but it's like, and yeah, we touched on it when it's like, he tells Gideon, he's like, no, I'm fighting you for me. And then it's like, Scott gained self-respect. It's like, no, if he had actually gained self-respect, he wouldn't fight Gideon.
Yeah,
because
so
Gideon's just goading him, like, not even that intensely. He's just being like, yeah, I got your girlfriend. And it's like, if you really had self-respect, you'd be like, fine, why are you calling me, you weird asshole? Like,
right.
What the fuck is your problem?
Story-wise, it's all very superficial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very surface level, very lip service.
And I guess the question is, which way should have they gone with it? Because I think the thing that's bothering you, that does bother me as well, is it feels like they were skating between the two. Mm-hmm. Like they could have made a simpler story about a battle of the bands
just,
and a romance.
Battle of the bands.
And fighting the exes.
Yeah, and just make Scott not a guy who needs to really grow. Just have him be the hero.
Yeah, you would cut Knives out.
Yeah,
which is a shame because again, I really like that performance. Or you do the work.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to do the work, you can't have Knives. You can't have Scott be this scumbag. Basically, this guy who's not like they pay so much lip service to it. Like when Ramona a couple of times tells Scott, "You're the nicest guy I've dated." And at first he's like, is that a good thing? And then when she tells it to him again, he says, oh, that's really sad. But we haven't really seen him learn that why that's sad.
So we put it on Edgar Wright, but is it possible that this is like a producer or the studio?
Maybe. I don't believe he, oh wait, he did. And he does have a co-writing credit on the script.
Yeah. Because it does, or like a studio note. Because everything we're talking about, he builds this really strong foundation for a different ending.
Yes.
And then he has this ending. And like, I think most people listening probably like the movie and might still agree with you that it's not a great ending.
Sure.
Though.
Yeah. There's a lot to like about this movie.
Yeah. And what it feels like is that, like we were just discussing it, is you either, in order to get the studio ending, you have to cut out like Knives. You have to go back and redo the entire first part of the movie.
Yes.
In order to get the good ending, you don't have to do any of that. You just have to change the ending. So that's why it feels to me like it's a studio note. Mm-hmm. Like there was a version written and then the ending was adjusted, and that of course ripples throughout the whole movie, but they can't rewrite the entire script.
No.
So they just changed the ending, and that's, I don't know, that's a bummer if that's true. I'm not going to look it up.
No, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. who the hell can say?
Because it really does feel like a film that might have had a different ending at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still really like it. I still really like watching it. I think it's because difference between me and you is I didn't read the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, if I had never seen any of the Jurassic Parks and watched Jurassic World, I bet I'd find it fun. But since I know the context of what could be, what could have been,
mm-hmm.
it's more disappointing, right? So you know what Scott Pilgrim could have been.
Yeah.
And you're watching this kind of bummed out.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it. That makes sense. Who haven't we talked about?
I don't know, man. I think
Aubrey Plaza.
Sure, yeah, she's
doing a great job.
Yeah, she's just funny.
They're all great.
Brie Larson is doing a great job.
Oh yeah, Brie Larson's killing it.
Yeah.
There's so many fucking people in this.
Yeah.
good God. Oh, you know who else was killing it? Little Neil. I don't even know who that is.
Young Neil. That's Johnny Simmons.
Okay. What do I know him from?
He's the boyfriend in Jennifer's Body.
Oh, I thought that was all right. My big thing this time around was the actress playing Knives and the actor playing Neil. Mm-hmm. They were both again, because I think it's because they're playing such silly roles. They have to do a lot of work. And so I don't know. I really liked them.
Yeah. No, they're both great. Yeah, everybody's killing it in this movie.
But everybody's sort of playing themselves, you know?
I think so. I think to a degree. I mean, obviously, the evil X's are doing these larger than life cartoon character versions of people.
Yeah. Jason Schwartzman, I mean, he's played those types of roles.
Yeah.
What was that movie with him and Devon Sawa and my Devon? Our Devon, sorry. Is it Cheaters or Slackers? Does that have Devon Sawa in it? Hold on. Hold on, everybody. Everybody, hold on.
Does. What was that called? Slackers, I think, right? Or was it Cheaters?
I wrote Spackers.
Well, it's not either of those.
Slackers. 2002, Devon Sawa.
Yep.
And Jason Segel was apparently in it.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta watch this movie again. Jason Schwartzman's in there.
Yeah, he's like the nerd, I think, that they're...
He's the villain.
Aha.
Nat Faxon is in it. Jim Rash is in it. Holy shit.
God damn. All right.
Yeah, if you remember, the only thing I remember is Jason Schwartzman's character, because he's like nerdy villain, but he turns out to be like a serious threat, like a maniac, like a really dark character from what I remember. Like he creates a hair, like a doll of hair of the romantic interest, and is like clearly like serial killer waiting to happen. It's really fucking weird.
Perfect.
Excuse me. My point is that he can play these. He can play these roles. I don't remember what my point is. I guess I want to watch Slackers with Devon Sawa, where they play slackers.
We can do that. This is a power that we have.
Yeah, we have that power. All right. Any more thoughts about Scott Pilgrim?
I
thought I had more notes. Hold on.
Not for me.
One final thought.
Okay.
They had to put a Michael Cera wig on a stuntman. That's it. That's the thought.
Many times.
Yeah, that just delights me.
Oh yeah.
The fight choreography stuff delights me to no end. Getting Michael Cera, because I bet Michael Cera learned a few moves probably and had to take it seriously, and that's funny as hell.
Yes, that is delightful.
Yeah, you know what we should watch?
What should we watch?
Magic.
I don't. What is that?
Okay, hold on. That's I gotta go back on IMDb. That's another Michael Cera movie. I believe it's called that, and it looked like the weirdest fucking thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Magic. Okay, it's not coming up on IMDb. There it is. Magic, 2013. Michael Cera. It's like he's like, I don't know what he is in it, but it looked really like sinister and weird. It was, when Michael Cera was doing that shit, he did that Crystal Fairy movie as well, and like the mustache one.
Oh yeah, what was the name of the mustache one?
Yeah, where he's doing. He was like
playing his
Michael
evil
Cera,
twin.
He was trying to Elijah Wood it.
Mm-hmm.
With all that Superbad money, and I don't know if I think he kind of whiffed it.
Youth in Revolt, is that the mustache one?
Youth in Revolt, that's the mustache one. He was in Twin Peaks. He was in the Twin Peaks revival. I'm just looking at Michael Cera's IMDb.
Why wouldn't he have been
now.
in the Twin Peaks revival?
He kind of. I could see that. I could see that working. You think we'll ever see him again? I mean, he's still working, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what'll ever. I don't know what will happen to him.
I don't know. Who can say? He's in a new comedy coming up called Captain Dad.
Sure.
I'm not going to look it up. I'm not going to find out what that is.
No, why would I want to know what that is? I just want it to live in my mind as whatever it is I decide Captain Dad is.
He's still working. I think he's is he one of those actors people kind of had a backlash to? Did he do anything? Because I always like him. Like
I think he's one of those.
Unless he's like a jerk, but like
I think he was one of those actors that people just kind of turned on a little because he kind of does the same thing in all of his movies.
But like, so does a lot of people.
So do a lot of people. Yeah. No, I'm not saying,
Yeah, we just didn't like The Thing as much anymore.
Right.
We were talking about McLovin. He's another one where it's like, oh, I don't know, man. You're gonna have to get older, and you'll have to figure that out.
This is a hard one to ride out.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Cera's the same, where it's like his bit is that he's like 20 at the 25 at the oldest, and then once he gets past that, like, what is he gonna do? Play a dad? No,
that's weird. Get that the hell out of my face.
Yeah. No, he's gonna have 2 decades where he's really hanging in there, and then he's gonna play like a shitty boss or like something. I don't know. I hope he figures it out.
Yeah,
Michael Cera, I know you're listening.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Do a Scorsese. Just do a Scorsese film.
Get your way into a Scorsese. Yeah, get Jonah Hill to get you into a Scorsese, and then it'll all be fine.
Do a Moneyball.
Yeah, do a Moneyball.
Do a Moneyball.
Do a Moneyball. What are we talking about this for?
Yeah. Hey, thanks to Lef for suggesting this film. I knew it was going to be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to, you can go on our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's where you can produce episodes of We Just Watched. We also have exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac for only $5 a month. You can hear both of them. We watch movies with people every Friday night. There's all sorts of stuff on that Patreon. So you can just go there.
Yes.
Just go there.
We also have a store, tpublic.com/store/gamefully-unemployed, where you can get t-shirts, masks, mugs, stickers, posters, all kinds of things. So check that out, you guys.
Check it out.
You so-and-sos.
Check it the fuck out. Check it out, Michael, Sarah.
Do the things that we're telling you to do.
We command it.
Yes.
Yes. In the name of Satan.
Yeah, always. I mean, that's what this is all... was that not clear?
I think that was...
That's where all this money is going, yeah.
It's going straight to Satan. We dig a hole.
Yeah, straight to the devil. We throw it in a hole.
Yep. And we say, here you go, devil.
We throw some shit in there.
Yep. And I don't know what he does with it.
You know what? That's it's need to know, and we don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.